We'll wait another couple of seconds while people do join us. If you can't tell, the two participants who have really creative backgrounds are coming to us from their own offices, one in Moab and one in Mexico. I know that for some people, there's a great deal of competition to have the coolest background in Zoom. And as you can tell, it's Mónica and Rhiana who have seriously outdone Mary and me at the Moab Museum. So congratulations to the two of you.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and begin with tonight's conversation. And please be patient with us. Everyone is trying to develop their best Zoom habits and technical skills in this environment. If there are any glitches, we'll do our best to address them promptly. You can always use the chat sign to let us know that something is not working for you. And we will do our best to have a really constructive and, as I said earlier, thought-provoking conversation. It's my honor to serve as director of the Moab Museum and to be able to be your facilitator for tonight's conversation. You'll also see Mary Langworthy from the museum, who is our community relations officer, our Zoom guru, and who will be monitoring for questions that people may want to ask our guests. As I said earlier, this program is a partnership with the Moab Valley Multicultural Center. And so we're delighted to have its executive director, Rhiana Medina, with us tonight. Rhiana is in her office wearing a beautiful necklace of, from where I'm sitting, undecipherable material. But she is there in Moab, and in a little while we'll have a chance to share with you a little bit about the Cultural Center and what they're doing, especially during this, this pandemic. Also with us is our featured guest tonight, and that is Mónica Piñera, who is joining us from Mexico, where she spends some of her time. But we're also really blessed that she spends part of her year in Moab. And it's because of her experience crossing boundaries that we've decided to offer this program tonight. The program is really a way for us to introduce a temporary exhibit that the museum will be hosting through the month of March. We'll talk a little bit more about the logistics for that at the end of the program and let you know how you can actually visit the museum by appointment and observe and take in the stories that have been compiled. So sit back, relax, and I'm going to turn this over to Mary to go through some of the nuts and bolts, and then we'll just jump right into the program.
Thanks, Forrest. Really briefly for folks who are new to Zoom and joining us on that platform, we cannot see or hear you like you can see or hear us, but we welcome your feedback, so feel free to send us a chat. For folks who are joining us on Facebook Live, we are monitoring the comments and messages on Facebook, and I will relay those to Rhiana and Mónica at the end of our discussion. Back to you, Forrest.
Thanks, Mary. First of all, I mentioned this exhibit, and I want to say just a little bit more about it when you get to talk with the creators. This exhibit is a stunning collection of stories, And we at the museum are all about sharing stories and providing space for others to tell their stories. And this collection is a series of stories written by people from both sides of the US-Mexico border. That makes it the Moab Museum's very first transboundary exhibit. So we're really proud of that, and I'm glad to be able to present this tonight. And I'm going to begin by asking Mónica some questions that sort of get us started with the inspiration, and let her describe a little bit about the exhibit. And then we'll have some conversation back and forth as we move forward. Mónica Piñera, how did you come to this idea of collecting stories about something as daunting, something as frightening perhaps, as the quarantine that we are living with our neighbors around the world?
Yes, thank you, Forrest. Thank you for this opportunity. And thank you to the museum and to Rhiana Medina for Multicultural. Well, let me tell you that I am a journalist. So I like to look for stories everywhere, all kind of stories. So when the lockdown happened last March in all the world, I was living in Moab. So I spent all day at home, and I start to write a journal to put my ideas about my days, my activities, my thoughts, and I understand that I had to tell a lot of ideas about that situation, so strange for the world, for me, for all the people. So I began to imagine how people would be living the same situation like me, like my husband, that we were at home, changing our routine. So this is the first step for this work, Memories of Quarantine.
It's interesting. It's interesting because that journaling has become more popular over the last 10 to 15 years. So in some ways, it sounds as though this was an extension of your own journaling, and then inviting others to share with you. And so can you tell us how you identify people, and were people eager to participate in this?
Yes, every Sunday we had an online conversation by Zoom with my relatives here in Mexico, and they talked about all the ideas like me, the fear, the thought, the health, no? So I invite they to write, what are they thinking about this? What were they thinking about this? And then I think that my friends was in the same situation, so I make an invitation to write. People, so these stories are from Mexico, from US, and others from Italy. I have relatives in Italy, living in Italy, from Puerto Rico. And well, it's a very big multicultural community in these stories. So I write invitations by mail, by letter, by WhatsApp, and that was the idea to invite people.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It sounds as though when we say this is a transborder boundary exhibit, it's really a international collection of stories. So, and that's wonderful. It's interesting because one of the concerns that many people have about the time we're living through is individuals' sense of both withdrawal and isolation because of quarantine. And that's not something that many people like to talk about or have the opportunity to sit with other people and talk about it. So did you find that people were interested in sharing their experiences in writing because it was comforting to be able to communicate that way?
Well, it wasn't easy because you say that people is not common to write their feelings. So I talked many times to try to convince them. And finally, I received 29 stories, different stories that are in this book. And I think that this is the reach of the work, because there are people from different parts of the world, especially Mexico, because I'm from Mexico. But I think that we can have an idea how people was living that time, no, the quarantine, the pandemic, the COVID. And I think that this is the reach of this world, no, the variety, the multicultural ideas about one same problem, no.
That's really exciting for us, because when we learn, and you mentioned a book, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but you've, as you said, you've collected stories from people from all over, and that will give people a sense that of sharing an experience with people in other countries or in other cities, in other places, and everybody has their own different experience.
Yes. But the problem was the same around the world, no? The pandemic, and in that moment, the quarantine, that is the first principal punto. The main point of the war, no? The quarantine, the time from the people changed their life unexpected, because we didn't know what happened in that moment. So well, I think that this is the reach.
It's interesting because most museums right now are struggling trying to figure out how to capture stories from the pandemic for people years from now. In southeastern Utah, we can look back to the experience of the influenza pandemic of 1918 and some collected memories of that. But it's hard to think that we have to now go out and start collecting masks and PPE and finding other ways to tell this story.
Yes.
I want to ask Rhiana now, because this is a partnership with the Multicultural Center, and this exhibit was first unveiled at the annual Day of the Dead ceremony and celebration that the Multicultural Center puts on. So Rhiana, maybe you could say briefly a little bit about what the center does, and then how you came to learn about Monica's stories and what inspires you about them.
Sure. Thanks, Forrest. You know, the Multicultural Center is a 13-year-old nonprofit organization here in Moab. And our mission is to build bridges across language and culture through family support, community collaboration, and education. And Monica's stories really kind of hit that community collaboration and education points of our mission. And we, at the Multicultural Center, we do many things. A lot of it is social work. And when we get to do broader outreach for the community or the public, where we can use arts and culture to meet our mission, it's really fun and exciting, and also just can be a really colorful way, you know, besides the social work that we offer, because a lot of the work inside of the center is, you know, focused on legal advocacy and homelessness services and food insecurity. So when we get to celebrate culture in a broader and more celebratory way, it's such a gift. And the Day of the Dead celebration, we've been doing this for 10 years now. And it's truly, I mean, it's celebrated largely in a lot of parts of Mexico, but in several other countries as well. But we choose to use this holiday as one of our signature events, because death is something that brings us, we'll all experience, we all have have or will lose somebody that we love. And of course, you know, experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic, I feel like a lot of us either read about death or know somebody who either was sick or were afraid, you know, it faced their own mortality. And when the center was responding to huge amounts of calls for people reaching out for assistance during the pandemic, Monica's letter, you know, it was inviting us to share stories, it was a nice break in a way to kind of deal with our own emotions that we were experiencing during that time, you know, in our own personal lives, and of course at work, it being a place that was, you know, dealing with it day in and day out. So when it was just, I don't know how the idea came to me. She came to the center, that she was helping us with some of the decorations. We like to, as much as possible during this event, use really original folk art that is made by people here, or art that people have brought from their own countries. We like to make it as authentic as possible. So I asked Monica if we could share some of her stories, and she was gracious enough to allow us to pick a few to display at our Day of the Dead event this last year in 2020.
That's wonderful. And your point about death, I think, is right on point for many people right now. The fact that there are so many people who have been lost to the pandemic all around the world. It's a tragedy that in many ways we all share, but often we have to share either silently or alone. And I think that's one of the geniuses of Monica's idea, is that people now can share privately, but also in a way that they can find out where other people are and get other perspectives. So Rhiana, I have to tell you that Monica and I have been conspiring because we later on will be asking each of you to share some items from the book, but Monica has suggested reading something that you wrote during this exercise.
Okay, I will read, and can you help me with the translation, Rhiana? Okay, this is only an extract of your work. It says, la oficina no está menos ocupada de lo que siempre ha estado, solo que es de una manera diferente. En lugar de levantarnos, salir a saludar y reunirnos en persona con los visitantes, ahora silenciamos y habilitamos nuestros micrófonos todo el día. Enviamos mensajes de ida y vuelta y chateamos.
The office has been busy, but in a different way. We, instead of seeing people in person, we're talking on the phone to them instead.
Todo el personal tenemos una reunión en línea diariamente, de modo que estamos atrapados en el torbellino de la actividad que ha tenido lugar en las últimas horas. Sucede tanto cada día que puede parecer difícil mantenerse al día.
There's so much going on that it's hard to keep up with everything. And we're using new technology. We're talking to people online and more on the phone than we ever have.
El 75% de nuestro tiempo lo dedicamos a ayudar a nuestros usuarios y socios comunitarios con esas necesidades relacionadas con COVID-19. Estas necesidades se refieren a alimentos y suministros para el hogar, ya que los fondos de su último cheque de pago se vuelven cada vez más pequeños. Actualmente, el condado de Grant, donde se ubica Moab, tiene la cifra más alta de desempleo en el estado de Utah. La gente busca información y asesoría sobre a quién llamar y qué hacer en esa situación.
Almost 35% of our time is being spent with requests from people suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. We are working with our community partners and our community very hard to provide food and emergency household supplies that people need during this time. We noticed that our clients, the last checks that they received before they may have been laid off from work, are getting smaller and smaller.
And the last one, la última. Gracias al increíble apoyo de la comunidad, ya hemos distribuido una asombrosa cantidad de alimentos y suministros para el hogar. Solo para comparar, el Centro Multicultural proporcionó 57 comidas a 32 personas en marzo de 2019 a través de nuestra despensa de alimentos. Este año, estamos refiriéndonos al 2020, en el mismo mes hicimos 505 comidas para 208 personas.
We're so grateful to all of the people in our community who have helped us provide so much for the people who are in need right now because of the pandemic. Just to give you an idea, at the same time last year, the Multicultural Center provided 57 meals to 32 people in the same month. This year, during what we're experiencing, we have distributed 505 meals to 208 people. And we're so grateful for all of the help.
Well, this is part of the story from Rhiana Medina that you can find in Memories of Quarantine, as another stories like the doctor that is talking with a patient in the hospital, another one, the young man that had COVID and explained how was his symptoms. The young lady that began a small business making cakes and cookies. Well, it's a variety of stories that you can see in this book.
It's interesting, Rhiana mentioned art and culture and music, and art and music are universal languages, and so they do communicate emotion and anxiety and a lot of the joy of living with other people. And now we're in an environment where people do seem to be cut off and isolated more and more. So the Day of the Dead celebration was an ideal way to launch this exhibit and to be able to bring it to the community. Rhiana, I have a question about what you just mentioned, the statistics you provided about the number of meals you are now providing for the community. And could you say a little bit about how you do that?
Sure, I'd love to. The Multicultural Center, the food pantry is just, one small way that we offer tangible help to people who are in need. And it's always been something that the center has done quietly, but when the pandemic hit and our county's food bank only being open 2 days a week for 2 hours each day, so 4 hours a week, there wasn't the capacity for everybody who was needing food. And like I said, we also provided at that time some emergency household supplies such as toilet paper, soap, other hygiene items, infant supplies, emergency medicines, financial assistance for things like that. And I think, going into 2020, the numbers aren't where they were at the peak of the pandemic, but certainly this year our food pantry numbers continue to be higher than usual because we obtained so many new people who had discovered the center as a resource. Additionally, our homelessness outreach has grown, so that has made the need for the food pantry greater also. But I think the special thing about the Multicultural Center's food pantry is it's not just a food distribution. When people come and say that they need food, our intake advocates will sit with them and at least once a year perform an intake, which is just a set of questions that they can choose to answer that gives a bigger picture about what they're experiencing. So the center can identify other ways if they're having trouble providing food for themselves or their family, what other things they might need help with. And they can choose to we can give them a referral if they need mental health referral or a medical referral, or someplace, that can help them with job training, that's something that we can give them a really good referral for, or we can help them by case managing, making a plan to get them in a better place also. So our food pantry recipients are able to receive a whole breadth of services that I don't think many other food pantries offer.
That's wonderful. It's frightening that the need is so great. And you're doing the center is doing everything it can with somewhat limited resources. So we're grateful for that in the community. So I want to come back to Mónica, because the conversation earlier, you mentioned the book that, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the title in Spanish. I'll let you do that, Mónica. But would you describe the process you went through to select the stories? You mentioned, I think, 29 stories. The process you used to go through that and actually to prepare and develop the book.
Well, it was a long process because I received the stories, the 29 stories are all the stories that I received. So I have to review each one to correct, to make sense the ideas of the author. And I read everyone a lot of times. And then my husband helped me in that process. Then when it was ready, I think, well, I can give a beautiful presentation. So one of my nephews helped me with some design. And well, the little book, there are only 68 pages. It's very little, but it's my book. I'm very proud. I finished it on August, and I began in June. So it's 2 or 3 months to prepare that book. Your microphone.
Diane, thank you. It's the first time tonight. That's pretty good for me. We'll shamelessly promote it, Mónica. It's available where?
Yes. Well, the main idea was to make the book and to keep it in my bookshelf, but well, to share with the people that send me the stories. But now the Memorias de la Cuarentena, or Memories of Quarantine, it's available at the Kindle store of Amazon. You can look at this and you can buy. It's a very cheap book and you can buy it. And you can visit the museum to read these stories.
Right. Let's be clear, it's not cheap.
Well, it's economic.
It's economical, it's inexpensive, and it's important. So speaking of that, now you've produced a book, but will you continue to find stories? Will you continue to accept them? Will you be reaching out to people for certain kinds of stories? Or where do you see this going?
I have not idea. I finished this book and well, I'm not recollecting new stories. Maybe I can do, but now I can look for people who had COVID to talk with me about how was their experience. The quarantine now finished. There's not more quarantine. The pandemic continue, but it's different. So I don't know, I have to look for another idea about this, and maybe the vaccination, or to complete the idea about this pandemic. But I don't have a clear idea about this.
Well, my sense is that you will come up with some ideas and they'll be wonderful. I can tell. From
Thank
that.
you.
Let me ask you one other question about the book. It is in Spanish, correct?
Yes, it is in Spanish, but for example, at the museum, you can see the stories in Spanish and in English. So a few of them, there are only five or six stories you can read in English too. And maybe the next project is to translate all the stories and make a book about this. It could be, I don't know.
Speaking just for myself, I think that that would be really interesting for those of us who have only minimal Spanish.
Yes, I know.
And very little reading comprehension of Spanish, that because these are stories from around the world, as you say.
Yes.
And sometimes the ability to read other people's experiences can help you reflect on your own. And,
Yes.
and that's a real gift that you're doing, that you're giving people. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
If you had to, Monica, again, if you had to say, what was the top 2 or 3 messages or emotions that people expressed, would you share those with us?
The principle, I think, was fear. Fear, because nobody knows in that moment what was happening. No, we only know that we have to be safe at home, but no more information. The information was drop by drop. So fear was the first. Then anxiety, I think, anxiety. Some people say that. Another people was very positive about this, no? He wanted to be positive to live that moment. And what else?
Those were the main.
Those were the mains, and the change of their routine, no? They have to make home office or school at the home, and the change of the routine is another point that you can see in these stories.
Rhiana referred to the change in the routines at the Multicultural Center.
Exactly.
But I know that you also have duties as a mother, so you had some of those responsibilities too. You weren't just juggling staff and the people you serve, you were juggling in your own house.
Yes, that's true. And I would say a theme that I got out of the stories when I read them, was resilience. And I thought that was a beautiful message from the stories.
Does the resilience come from the positivity that Monica referenced?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And another situation was the ideas that people have to spend a lot of time at home. So, for example, you can find a story that one woman that put a pool in their living room, in a little department, to spend time, to refresh. This was very funny. It's very funny, this story.
That's resilience. That's being resilient, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. You were fortunate that people were so willing to share with you. And I guess I'm speaking now and asking a question as a museum person. What advice would you give to the Moab Museum and to other museums that want to do the same kind of thing, which is reaching out to people to capture, to the degree possible, their pandemic or quarantine experience? You're a journalist by training, so you have some of those skills. So do you have some suggestions for us in terms of inviting people to tell their stories?
Yes, I think that well, for Moab Museum can invite people to share their stories about the pandemic, the quarantine, like I did with my relatives, my friends. And I think that it could be a very rich work, rich experience to know more people experience, and because it's part of the story of the world. No, now we don't live a pandemic every day or every year, so this is a special part of this the story of the world. And if we have more stories, more testimonies, I think that, well, we can remember this forever.
Yeah. This is a once in a century experience.
Yes.
And one of the things that we're looking at is trying to find ways to compare today with the Spanish or the influenza pandemic, which is also often called the Spanish flu pandemic. There are some similarities between the way public officials and people have responded. And that's something that when you're back in Moab, we might ask you to help us with.
Okay.
So Mary, I'm going to check in with you and see if we have some questions that have arisen from this conversation.
Yes, just keeping an eye on Facebook. You both have a bunch of fans who are tuning in there and sending their congratulations and relaying their excitement on your behalf about this exhibit. So just wanted to send those both of your ways, Monica and Rhiana. Somebody was wondering, like roughly how many of your stories are from the Moab community?
From Moab, I think that there are 3. I have one from Rhiana, another one from
Kelsey.
the English teacher Kelsey, and the other one from Bradia from the multicultural. I think that is it from Moab. Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know, just looking at the exhibit, the one from Bradia at MVMC is
Yes.
and there's a wide range of where
Yes.
stories and folks are from there. Another question, people were curious about what's happening with MVMC in the future and what you're thinking about the year ahead, Rhiana. I know it's a broad one, but I'll send that your way.
Yes, you know, there's definitely going to continue to be some fallout with the pandemic. We're happy that spring is coming and a lot of things seem to be open, but I think that MVMC will continue in 2021 to be a major partner with the school district and with the health department and with the hospital to get accurate information out about the vaccine as it gets rolled out. Certainly our language interpreters have had additional duties as we're helping the school nurses and the teachers and the administrators communicate with families when kids our students rather are, you know, testing positive and what they need to do in terms of taking care of themselves and staying home and getting tested. And certainly I think a big thing that MVMC, a role that we play a lot is, you know, there's a big gap when it comes to digital equity. And a lot of times with the vaccine rollout, it'll be go online and make an appointment to sign up for your vaccine. And certainly there's not everybody has access to a computer or knows how to go online, even if they had one or you know, knows how to do that on their phone. So people come to MVMC all the time for things like that to help with online applications or online forms that they need to do. So MVMC will be open every day, Monday through Friday, like we do, to help people get signed up for those services. And then continuing into 2021, you know, our staff is going to grow to 8, and with 5 of our 8 staff being bilingual advocates. And we'll continue to provide language services and we have a big umbrella, which we call crisis resource and advocacy. And that might be homelessness services and legal advocacy. We work a lot with the justice system to help people navigate the court systems. So, and then the food pantry too. We've always got a lot going on. Beginning March 1st, we do a month-long awareness and fundraising campaign called Multicultural March. And all month long, donations are doubled to the Multicultural Center, and we try to get a boost at the beginning of the year to help us carry on the services for the rest of the year. So we invite everybody to participate in that, and we'll have a big party at the end of the month to celebrate our multicultural community and all of the good work that we did in that month. So please look at follow us on Facebook and read our newsletters for more information on that.
Thanks for those updates. And a couple other folks were just wondering if I could put the link in the Facebook chat of where to find Monica's books. So I will do that.
Yes.
Rest assured, everyone.
Thank you.
One last question, which I will ask and then answer myself, was some folks were wondering how they can actually come and see the exhibit. And the answer to that is it will be on exhibit during March. We are accepting appointments for visitation on an appointment only basis to control groups due to COVID and ensure that we're meeting all regulations and recommendations about health and safety. So feel free to reach out to us at info@moabmuseum.org to set up an appointment. And we're accepting appointments Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 6. But if that does not work, happy to be flexible. Just really eager to make this available to the community because it's incredibly evocative and just so timely. So those are questions from the audience. I'll send it back your way, Forrest.
Well, I'll try to catch that and just thank Monica and Alfonso, who is your assistant. And thank you both for participating. Yes. As I've said before, we really look forward to meeting you socially distanced in person when you two are back in Moab.
Very soon.
Wonderful. And Rhiana, people who are joining us from outside of Moab may not appreciate both the breadth of the services the Multicultural Center provides, but the importance of it to serve the community. A small community like Moab has the tendency to create many really important not-for-profits who work together to meet the needs of their community, and Multicultural Center is certainly one of the most important of them. So thank you for participating with us. We'll consider this the first of many collaborations as we move forward.
Thank you, Forrest. And I did it before I forget. If you do go see the exhibits, the frames and the graphic design that they're set to, I did want to say that Molly Clark, who works here at the Multicultural Center, put a lot of time and effort when, you know, I had the idea for the exhibit, but I had given the project to Molly to bring it to fruition and make it look stunning, and she did a great job. So just wanted to give a shout out to her also.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that, and we will work through our process and see if we can, with Monica's permission and Molly's permission, find a way to put images of those up on our website at the appropriate time so that we too can help let people know about it.
Okay.
Monica, Rhiana, thank you both so much for joining us. Take care, have a good rest of the evening and a good rest of the week and a great March.
Thank you.
Mary, thanks for everything.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you very much.